September 21st, 11:44 a.m., 6 North Korean fishing boats crossed the de facto north-south border in the West Sea. Only after South Korea's Navy fired warning shots, the North Korean vessels retreated. The following day, yet another violation of the Northern Limit Line, or the NLL. In September alone, 7 similar intrusions occurred. At first, Seoul saw the intrusions as North Korean fishermen's bid to expand their catch during the peak crab fishing season. But repeated violations quickly fueled speculation of ulterior motives.
Most recently, we also crossed the line during the night. This is a series of events, well planned, deliberately planned, and this is not just an activities of a fisherman. I think it was, at least it was endorsed by the military and the leadership in Pyongyang.
Other signs further suggest Pyongyang's malintent. For instance, North Korean patrol boats seem more lax than usual about restraining boats from crossing the NLL, while the fishermen only react to gunshots. Also, at times of the intrusions, North Korea's shore batteries were in combat mode.
It's very unusual to see that North Korean fishing vessels cross the NLL first, while the patrol boat remains behind, observing the situation closely. So that's why we see this incident is very intentional. Another rare case is that the opening of the outer door of the seashore batteries, which signals threat message to the South Korean navies.
As for North Korea's motives behind raising tensions in the disputed West Sea, some analysts say it's an attempt to promote solidarity within the military and consolidate the new regime's power.
It can be a reflection of North Korea's internal dispute. It is possible that those who argued for negotiation with South Korea, especially over the provision of emergency aid to help the flood victims.
With the country in dire straits, especially in the wake of this summer's devastating floods, the regime is believed to be redirecting domestic anger abroad. According to another school of thought, Pyongyang's provocations aim to sway the outcome of South Korea's presidential vote.
Many experts in Korea interpreting this recent series of events as a North Korean attempt to have some impact on South Korean president election campaigns and make foster circumstances that pro-North Korea the candidate would be elected rather than a conservative like the current president Lee Myung-bak.
To further stir military tension, North Korea lashed out on the heels of the NLL incident. September 23rd, Pyongyang accused Seoul of what it calls adventurous military provocations and threatened a powerful strike by its front's units which know no bounds. The North went even further and suggested the boats belong to a third country. Some North Korea watchers say Pyongyang is looking for an excuse to wage an assault.
So in some cases, we can, some accident happen, right? We, South Korean Navy, might shoot more close to these fishing boats. Some kind of accident would occur. Then North Korea would use that as a pretext to launch a genuine military provocation.
If North Korea has a grandiose purpose behind this incident, it may want to see how the South Korean military react militarily to this provocation. Because South Korea has repeatedly expressed its intention to respond firmly to any kind of provocation, which include nuclear and missile provocation, but also conventional military provocations.
Premeditated or accidental, clashes are common along the NLL, especially during the crab-catching season. In June 1999, the first Battle of Yeongpyeong broke out after North Korean patrol boats kept crossing the NLL, claiming to protect their fishermen. As South Korea tried to force the ships back, fire was exchanged.
The major incidents occurred in 1999, and 2002, and 2009. There were casualties on North Korean side in 1999, and 3 years later, South Korean soldiers were killed in 2002.
In the wake of the Korean War, in August 1953, the United Nations forces drew up the NLL to prevent North-South confrontations at sea. But in 1999, North Korea declared its own border further south of the NLL.
Until 1999, North Korea accepted this line as a de facto sea border. The new tactic was launched in the early 1990s, which is that they want to replace this armistice agreement with a new peace treaty. So in order to have a new system, they have to highlight the problems in the existing system. So they want to create problems along the lines, and first they raised this political and legal issues, and from 1999 they begin to use military forces too.
On September 29th, the North's powerful National Defense Commission called the NLL a ghost-like line. It also criticized the South for protecting the illegal border and warned of confrontation. Tension, therefore, runs high along the NLL. With North Korea talking tough, the South Korean government and the military are on alert. Seoul is also reportedly working with Washington on intelligence gathering.
In fact, the NLL was designed to prevent any military clash between two Koreas, but ironically, it became the potential source of military confrontation. At this point, I see that North Korea may not risk attempting very reckless actions because these provocations can cause politically and economically on the side of North Korea. Because South Korean government expressed its firm response to any kind of provocation, it is more likely that North Korea will be deterred. Strong deterrence backed by credible military force increases the credibility of declaratory actions, which means that South Korea's declaration of firm response lower the possibilities of North Korea's provocation.
Amid questions over the latest provocations at sea, political developments in Pyongyang are also under scrutiny. On September 25th, the North Korean leadership convened a rare second session of parliament in a single year. Experts had awaited word on economic reforms, given recent reports of Kim Jong-un's interest in rebuilding his desolate nation. But the closely watched session ended after endorsing a law extending compulsory education by a year to 12 years.
네, 이번 최고인민회의에서는 나름대로 김정은 체제가 어떤 변화, 개혁과 개방에 대해서 뭔가 선언이 있을 것이 아닌가 이런 기대가 컸습니다만은 그런 발표는 없고 단지 그 교육제도의 변화, 11년제 의무교육을 12년제로 바꾸고 또 기타 조직 문제 몇 가지를 처리했다는 측면에서 많은 대내외적으로 북한의 변화를 기대했던 사람들에게는 좀 실망을 준 그런 최고인민회의였습니다.
North Korea's general school system consists of kindergarten, primary, and secondary school. The latest change extends primary education from 4 years to 5 years. Also, the secondary education is divided into 3 years in middle school and 3 in high school, which is similar to the system in South Korea. The extension of the state-sponsored education is the first in 4 decades. Given this, many are asking why now, and why call a second session of parliament?
그 선전적 의미가 크다. 그러니까 이제 김정은 체제 들어와서 다시 그 의무교육 제도를 발표함으로써 북한의 사회주의 제도가 우월하다. 이런 걸 이제 선전하는 데 목적이 있고 북한의 정치 문화나 정치 체제 특성상 김정은은 앞으로 30여 년 이상을 지배할 지배자라고 할 수 있습니다. 그래서 이제 자신과 같이 출연하는 이런 김정은 키즈들을 잘 그 교육시키고 사상적으로 교양시켜서 자기 체제를 공고하게 하고 장기적으로 체제를 재생산하겠다. 그런 정치적 의미가 상당히 깊게 담겨져 있습니다.
In order to shore up his power, Kim Jong-un is undertaking educational reforms. What impact the changes will have on the isolated society is anyone's guess. Adding a year to state-sponsored education would require a bigger budget. In addition, the extra year in school would delay North Koreans' entry into society as well as their stint in the military.
이른바 고난의 행군 세대들이 1995년 이후에 태어난 세대들이 이제 군대에 입대하게 됩니다. 이제 문제가 되는 거는 고난의 행군 시기에 우선 출산율이 현저하게 줄어들었고, 그 다음으로 청소년, 그러니까 유아기를 고난의 행군 시기에 지나게 되면 신체 조건이 굉장히 열악하게 됩니다. 아마 이번에 어쨌든 간에 교육기간을 1년 늘려가지고 그러니까 입대 시기를 1년 더 늦추게 된 건데, 그렇게 되면은 이 병력 충원 문제가 좀 더 심각해질 가능성이 있습니다. 그렇게 되면은 아마도 현실적으로 제대 시기가 1년 늘어난다든지 아니면은 그러니까 여군에 대한 초모가 훨씬 더 강화될 가능성이 있습니다.
In line with the revisions, North Korea says it will increase its investment and budget in education. Still, skeptics are casting doubt on the overall effectiveness of North Korea's educational changes.
북한에서는 무상교육 11년, 또 이번에 1년 늘려가지고 12년이라고 말하는데요. 실제 교육 현장을 보면은 이거는 전혀 무상교육이라고 할 수 없습니다. 학교 예산을 국가가 주지 못하기 때문에 사실상 학교는 학부모들의 부담에 의해 가지고 그리고 학생들의 동원 노력에 의해 가지고 유지되고 있습니다. 그렇기 때문에 이번에 형식적으로 무상교육을 1년 늘렸다고 해가지고 사정이 전혀 달라진 게 없다고 생각이 됩니다. 그러니까 무상교육을 1년을 늘리기 전에 현재 실행되고 있는 11년, 그러니까 현재 실행되고 있는 교육 체계에 대해서 철저한 개혁과 그리고 재정적인 지원책을 먼저 마련하는 것이 더 중요했다고 생각이 됩니다.
North Korea also promises to end the mobilization of students for various labor-intensive work outside of school, and it plans to introduce computers and foreign language education. But again, skepticism prevails.
그동안 학생들을 봄철이면 이제 모내기 전투에 동원하고 또 가을이면 추수 전투에 동원하고 노력 동원 기간이 보통 1년에 한 30일 내지 60일까지 있었는데 이것을 이제 금지하고 학업에 전념하게 하겠다. 이런 의지로 보입니다만은 과연 현 북한의 노동 집약적인 노동력이 있어야만 농사를 지을 수 있는 조건에서 얼마나 실천에 제대로 옮겨질지는 의문을 둘 수 있는 문제이고.
Meanwhile, North Korea's silence on economic reforms is raising even more questions. Based on unconfirmed media reports, Pyongyang is currently pursuing a new economic system under its June 28th measures, giving more rights to farmers and factory owners. Citing Pyongyang's silence so far, some experts say such hopes may be premature.
제가 생각했을 때 북한에서 내부적으로 무슨 조치를 어떻게 취할 것인가에 대해서 완전하게 합의를 못 이루었을 가능성도 있습니다. 지금 개혁 조치에 관련해 가지고 보도가 나오는 걸 보면은 군부가 가지고 있던 경제 이권을 내각으로 옮긴다든지 아니면은 그러니까 농민대 국가의 그러니까 분배 비율을 70대 30으로 한다든지 하는 것들이 있습니다. 그러니까 이런 조치들을 보면은 가장 큰 피해자는 군부가 되어야 되는 겁니다. 군부가 되어야 되는데 북한 내부에서 가장 큰 압력 단체가 아마 군부일 겁니다.
Optimistic analysts welcome the recent educational reforms as North Korea's first step toward economic reforms. But the more popular view is that the regime should prioritize economic rebuilding.
지금 북한에서 굉장히 급격한 인플레가 진행이 되고 있는데 이 인플레를 진정시키지 않고서는 경제 개혁이 성공할 수 없는 겁니다. 그런데 인플레를 진정시키는 능력이 북한에는 없습니다. 그러면 원조를 받아야 되는데 이 원조를 받는 가장 핵심적인 조건이라고 하는 거가 북한 정부가 주변 국가와 긴장 완화를 추진하는 겁니다. 그러니까 이런 식으로 긴장 완화를 통해 가지고 원조를 받고 기술과 자본을 도입하고 수출 시장을 확보하는 거가 북한 경제 개혁이 성공할 수 있는 가장 중요한 전제 조건이라고 생각이 됩니다. 그렇기 때문에 앞으로 북한 경제 개혁이 성공하느냐 마느냐 하는 거는 앞으로 북한 정부의 대외 정책이 주변국과 긴장 완화를 도모하느냐 마느냐와 연동되어 있다고 생각이 됩니다.
Through provocations and propaganda, the Young Kim regime is exerting and consolidating its power both at home and abroad, all at the expense of its people. Economic reforms are deemed to be risky, but the greater risk for his regime could be in refusing to reform.